Join your host, Maddie Roche, as she brings you into a community of fee-only financial advisors who are successfully building profitable businesses that serve the next generation of clients. Learn from innovative advisors whose unique stories will inspire you to dream big and take action on your goals. Are you ready to live your best life and help your clients live theirs? Then you're in the right place.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of XYPN Radio. I'm Maddie Roche, your host. I'm excited to have XYPN member Chuck Donalies, owner of Donalies Financial Planning, a fee-only firm in Washington, D.C., on the show today. Chuck started his career in the biotech space, but after pursuing an MBA, he was drawn towards his passion for financial planning. Quickly after graduating from his MBA program, Chuck ended up taking a position at a fee-only RIA, doing all the tasks that owner didn't want to do. As Chuck explains, it was a perfect entry point into this space. He spent 6 years developing the skills and tools needed to run an RIA, all while getting his CFP designation. In 2012, he got an itch to go out on his own, to serve the clients he wanted on his own terms. And thus, he ended up opening up his own doors. Today, Chuck is servicing over 30 clients in a comprehensive manner, and he's loved the flexibility that he's been afforded over these years. It's allowed him to spend time with his children and his wife while being able to stay mentally and physically healthy. Today, he talks about how he plans to ramp up his firm a bit now that his kids are getting older. Although he's an introvert, Chuck has some really great advice about leaning into a community of like-minded financial advisors. It reminds us that the more willing you are to put yourself out there, the more you'll get back in return. If you're interested in what it's like to build a deliberate firm, this show is for you. Avocado toast, selfies, a mountain of student loan debt. Gen Y is anything but traditional, and with over 75 million people, it's a population you don't want to ignore. Learn more about how to serve this unique population in our guide called Attract and Profitably Serve Millennial Clients in Your RIA. Discover 3 key ways to tap into the millennial market and 6 things that they want from their financial advisor. Visit xyplanningnetwork.com/millennials for your free copy. You can find any of the resources we mentioned during the episode at xyplanningnetwork.com/255. Also, be sure to go to xyplanningnetwork.com to join our private group just for XYPN radio listeners. It's the community of advisors we've all been looking for that's there to provide support when we need it the most. Best of all, it's free. I encourage you to check it out. Again, that's xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP. Without further ado, here's my interview with Chuck. Chuck, welcome to XYPN Radio.
Thanks for having me.
I'm really looking forward to chatting today. I think you have some sage advice for a lot of our listeners. You've been with us at XYPN since nearly day one. You were one of our earliest joining members, not quite a founding member, but right there in early of 2015. And you've built a really incredible firm, and I'm so excited to learn about it. Go ahead and give us an intro to your firm. Where are you located? Who do you serve?
So I am located in Washington, D.C. The firm is uncreatively named Donalies Financial Planning. And I launched the firm in August of 2012 after working for another firm in DC area.
Let's talk about that. Were you at a fee-only firm before you launched your own?
Yes, it was at a fee-only firm that I started at in 2006 after I was finishing graduate school. And it was I was fortunate. It was a rare opportunity to join a fee-only firm right out of school for someone who was a solo practitioner but wanted administrative help, client service help, and I was able to jump right in and learn a lot in a short period of time.
Yeah, that's kind of an ideal segue into the industry is finding not only a good firm, but a fee-only firm that has space for a recent grad. You said you went to graduate school. What was that about?
I had been working for a biotech company prior to getting into financial planning, and it was a biotech education company that produced kits for students from middle to graduate school level.
Hmm.
And I was doing lots of things, production and marketing and customer service, and didn't really like it. It was okay, but there wasn't a whole lot of future there. And so I started going to graduate school at night to get my MBA.
Wow.
And I was fortunate that I was able to finish that up. And it just happened that while I was doing that, I was also teaching some classes at a gym. And one of the members that I was training said, "Hey, you should meet my financial planner. I think you guys would hit it off." And he is the gentleman that I met, and we did hit it off. And
wow.
that led me to that firm where I stayed for 6 years.
Interesting that you got an MBA. I'm interested both in kind of the academic experience of that, doing it at night and part-time, but also how it led you into financial planning. Most MBAs that I chat with are kind of shooting for the Fortune 500 companies. They kind of know the angle they want to take. Did you know that you wanted to go into financial planning?
I was always of my friends, I was always the one that people came to when they were looking for financial advice. And so I always had an interest in that. And I was always doing reading about personal finance and, everything investment related. And so it really just kind of, it was that plus there is a history in my family of entrepreneurship. So I was able to, I really liked the idea of starting a business and running a business. And so kind of the MBA was a natural fit for that.
Interesting.
So that's kind of what led me to, I think, look at the MBA program. And it was, being the frugal financial planner that I am, I also had the added incentive of my employer telling me that they would pay for me to get the MBA. So I figured it was a no-brainer to go to graduate school, and MBA was a good place to, a good program to follow.
Oh, absolutely. An MBA program paid by someone else is the best of the best you can get. So was that the biotech firm that had an interest in sending you to night MBA school?
That is correct. Yeah.
And what program did you go through?
I went to Johns Hopkins.
Mm-hmm.
They had they're mainly known more for the medical school side of things,
mm-hmm.
but they do have a business program, and they were, fortunately for me, they're based in Baltimore, but they do have campuses in Washington, D.C. and Montgomery County, Maryland. And so I was able to take classes at those locations, which were much more convenient to me than driving all the way to Baltimore in DC Baltimore DC traffic. So again, it was just a really good fit for time and location for me to do that program.
Yeah. And how quickly thereafter did you leave the biotech firm to jump into the financial planning space?
So I was finishing up school. I was wrapping up school in the spring of 2006. And I actually left the biotech company that spring. I knew that I didn't want to stay there forever. And they had always told me there was no time commitment, that if I was going to graduate school and they were paying for it, I did not have to stay for any period of time. It was time to go.
Yeah.
So I left, and that's when I started looking at other options.
Mm-hmm.
I had a very supportive wife, fortunately, and she kind of helped me get through that period, and was able to fortunately land on my feet at the other firm.
Yeah. And when you landed at that other firm, the fee-only RIA, were you a salaried employee? Did you opt to work hourly? What was the relationship when you first entered in? I think it's a good expectation to lay for some of our listeners that if you're going to approach an RIA, an established solopreneur or otherwise, what can they expect in terms of that conversation?
That's a really good question. gosh. So I was salaried at the time, and there was no, I was always told that there was no expectation that I was hired for a very specific purpose, to do very specific tasks. And there was no expectation that I would bring in clients, expand that role. And the gentleman that I worked for was very supportive in that, yeah, if you want to take the CFP exam, will help with, helping you find study time, helping you with some of the cost of that. But there was no expectation that I would eventually bring on clients. It was kind of up to me to do that if I really wanted to. How motivated was I to do that? And I was highly motivated, so I was able to, squeeze in time there for studying and while getting my job done, making sure I did a good job doing what I was hired to do. But it was up to me to focus on the other parts.
Yeah. And it's an interesting hindsight experience for you as now the owner of a RIA to be able to look at those tasks that you initially did back in 2006. What were some of them? What were some of the things that advisor was outsourcing to you?
So part of it, he did not have was not using a CRM.
Oh.
Figuring out what CRM to use and setting that up. It was handling client calls, scheduling. It was helping with rebalancing of portfolios. Once I had the proper licenses, I was able to help with that, preparing for client meetings. Any documents that had to be mailed to clients, I was helping prepare those and get them out. I'll say that, and this may come off negative, but it shouldn't necessarily come off be negative, because I still meet with this gentleman pretty regularly for lunch, and he was a mentor to me. So I think very fondly of him. But I will say that his firm was not technologically equipped. So things that I take for granted now, like having a scheduling tool, like I was the one that was scheduling client appointments. Whereas, I, using Acuity scheduling, have all of that done behind the scenes,
right.
Hand that off to technology. Why have a person, have a human doing that? It doesn't make any sense. Yep. So it's those types of things that I was doing that I think some of that is very easily handled by technology, but different generation, different experience in planning. It's just a different way of doing business. It doesn't mean it's right or it's wrong, but just different.
Fascinating. And during those years, did you know that draw to be an entrepreneur was bringing you closer to starting your own RIA, or were you kind of toying on what business venture you would move into next?
And for a long time, we had discussions about more of especially after I had done the CFP exam, there were more discussions about me starting to bring clients on and what that would mean in terms of income for me, and potentially, if I'm staying there for longer periods of time, what does that mean for the firm? Does that mean that I become some sort of partner at some point? And this is where I think I learned some really good lessons about career paths and what's important. I think, and in fact, even the gentleman that I work for has even said since then that he wishes at the time that he had some sort of career path in place for an employee, because he realizes now that he didn't, and there was no incentive. There was very little incentive for me to stay, to bring clients on, because there was no defined path forward. And so there was also not necessarily his fault, or anyone's fault really, I saw some different needs from our clients, people being turned away because they didn't have assets to manage. And if the firm had a minimum of asset management, and if you didn't meet that, you had to go somewhere else. And I saw some needs for younger clients who maybe didn't meet that, but they were willing to pay financial planning fees. And that's, we couldn't see eye to eye on how that would work. And so that's when I started to really think about, okay, well, maybe, I don't see a path forward in terms of partnership or ownership. I see these other opportunities that are not being met. Maybe it's time to think about moving on.
Yeah. I think that's a juncture that a lot of folks find themselves at, whether it's in, whether they're employed at Wells Fargo or a great RIA, that they're this conversation of the future, my professional future and longevity at this company. If it's not being discussed, it can be a really kind of scary place for people. And you really have to start sourcing some ideas yourself. And so it sounds like you were quite motivated kind of in general. When did you start putting the plans in place for your exit from that firm and to start your own firm?
I remember it was December of 2011. I'd always my wife and I had talked about me moving off on my own. And that was I'm a bit more cautious sometimes. So that made me nervous, and we had 2 young kids at that point. So I was a little nervous about that, but I think there was a point in 2011 that right around the holidays when I started to just feel like, you know what, I think it's time to look at a change. And what if that change was me going off and starting my own firm? And I remember my wife was just like, oh, do it. Just do it. Make it happen.
I love that.
So I was very fortunate there. She had very solid income and, was willing to support me through that. So I was very thankful for that. And so that's when we started to really kind of put plans in place. And I'd work during the day and come home, and I'd kind of sit on the couch at night and just start writing a business plan and figuring out what I had to do, what software was needed, and what other startup costs were needed to make this a reality. And then having a conversation that spring with my employer. I was nervous about that, and he was surprised, but supportive. And he said he hated to see me leave, but at the same time, he was also proud of me for getting out and doing my own thing. So yeah, it was by that spring I was out, and I helped transition a new employee, kind of training them so they were ready to go. Wow. And then, by middle of summer, I was on my own and just had to, wait through, the DC to approve my RIA status, and then I got started in August.
Wow, on your own. And what a great experience to have seen another solopreneur have his own financial planning firm, to be able to use that as inspiration, but also your 6 years of experience to identify the things that you wanted to change in your own firm. And it sounds like you were really driven by a desire to work with a different kind of clientele. Were you able to do that right out of the gate?
Yeah, I had a few clients. The few clients that I had brought on board at the other firm came with me. And there was, my former employer said, well, they came because of you. So I'm not going to try to, keep them or penalize you for, for having those clients go with you. That's silly, which I very much appreciated. So those clients went with me. And then, yeah, I did, make those, my initial, marketing or networking, the messaging around that and the communications around it was geared towards working with a younger clientele. So, I've refined it over time, but really it's, I'm 44 years old now. So, it's really, I kind of what I say is that I work with two different types of clients. One is the type that is, age late 30s to mid 50s, who don't have the time, the inclination, or the education to manage their own finances, and they want to delegate that out to someone else. And the other segment, or the other type of client, is someone that is just about ready to retire, or they have just retired, and they need some assistance kind of thinking through the management of the portfolio, the distribution strategies, and they don't want to deal with that themselves. So those are kind of like my two ideal clients that I've come to over time.
Yeah. Beautiful. And do you feel like you've been able to implement some of the technology and the systems that you wanted to back in the day in your own firm?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I think I saw the challenges. I recognize, that my previous employer, that it is difficult to think through like a career path for hiring someone. Not only just you have to have revenue to support another person, but what is that path forward for them? So for me, I've really wanted to avoid having to hire someone as long as possible.
Wow.
And so if I can, leverage technology through scheduling tools and, my CRM, rebalancing, iRebow, other rebalancing, or tools like that, anything that I can do to outsource that, FA bean counters, I will do that so that it's just me. Even though I do recognize that it wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing to have another person to partner with.
I'm interested in that decision, and especially having been someone's mentee of sorts in this industry. What makes you not want to hire someone right now? And there's no judgment associated. I'm just wondering that to be able to say, no, I'd rather use technology and keep it myself, that there's some intention behind that. And I'm wondering what it is.
I think the short answer is that I'm an introvert. And I've always been more of a loner, and I like that. So, managing another person takes a lot of time and mental energy if you're going to do it properly. And so I'd rather just avoid it if I possibly can. And I think that's one of the reasons why I joined XY Planning Network, was because it allowed me to interact with other planners who were going through some of the same challenges, same age group, even though I sometimes feel like I'm on the older side now, but you get that network, that community that's missing from when you're a solo practitioner. So I like being alone, but at the same time, it's good to have a little bit of connection out there. Yeah.
Especially if it's virtual too, right?
Well, these days, yes.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about that. You've been part of XYPN for a really long time. It's been such a joy to work with you and see the relationships that you've had with some of our other members develop. How have you utilized the strength and the leverage of a membership community that you've created yourself kind of from our larger community in your day-to-day practice?
So, I have been going to XYPN live every year since you guys started it. Mm-hmm. And I made some really good friends, especially in that first year. We made some really good friends that we communicate regularly. Mm-hmm. So I've got a study group of some other members, and we meet every other week, every other Thursday. We have a session where we cover everything from whatever that's going on in the world to just like business and technology and investing, We kind of rotate topics and come up with a program. So there's that. And staying connected that way, via email, via text, via Slack. It's a really good group, and I love being a part of that. There's also another study group of members too that we meet, and we're working on some things within the Accelerate CRM. And so again, trying to leverage technology, we all like to leverage technology as much as possible. And so that's another study group that we're working on that project too. It's just amazing to have this group of people, of planners, even using the forums at XYPN or the Facebook group, being able to communicate with people and ask questions if necessary, or even chime in and help other advisors who are posing their own questions and trying to figure things out. That's I really like being able to do that.
Yeah, I think that's so powerful coming from a self-proclaimed introvert, that you really have been able to find a lot of value and source a lot of energy and power from your community, even being an introvert. I'm interested, Chuck, in what your goals were for your firm when you started it. I know that when folks start their firms, sometimes they go into it blind, not knowing, do I want to manage? Do I not want to manage? Do I want to build a big business? Or do I want to keep it lifestyle? Did you know kind of those terms? Did you know those avenues? What was your take on what you thought you were building when you started 6 years ago?
I think the honest answer is that I really didn't know what I wanted initially. And I think people should be comfortable with that. I think one of the, maybe a drawback of going to conferences, whether it's XYPN or NAPFA conference, and you're talking to other planners, is this, like, you start comparing yourself to what other people are doing. And even the benchmarking survey, the study that comes out once a year, was great, but it also, at least for me, I started looking at that and saying, oh, what am I doing? If I'm not on track with some of these other numbers that are up there, what am I a failure? What's wrong with me? And I think people need to, other planners who are starting out, I would encourage them to really think about what they want, and design a practice, be deliberate with how they're designing that practice around those goals. So, for example, when I started my firm, my wife had very stable but a very demanding job, and I had left the other firm. In starting my own, I had more time on my hands than I did clients, so I had a lot of bandwidth. But what that also gave me, which was one of the big things that I wanted, was more time with our young children. So I was able to, get them to school in the morning, go back, work until they were done at usually 3:00, pick them up, and then have the rest of the day, that time with them. Or if I wanted to go chaperone a field trip, I could do that. And that was much more important to me than, some arbitrary revenue number or number of clients, assets under management, whatever it is. That was more important to me. And I think for a while, I kind of resisted that and tried to do everything and try to hit all these things, these numbers, targets. And it's not realistic, and it's not fair to, I think it's not fair to the advisor. It's not fair to the family, the kids, the wife. So be deliberate about what you're building and why you're doing it. And then, if it's to spend more time with family, well, then enjoy it. We traveled a lot. We still do. We still travel a lot in the summertime. And, I like that I can travel, we can go on ski trips in the winter and take a month off in the summer and, go live in another country for for a while. That's awesome.
How much do your daughters know about what you're building and your firm? I'm interested only because you've kind of built it around them. Do they really understand the work that you do?
I don't know. I mean, we talk about what I do, and I try to incorporate that into our conversations over dinner. Ask them questions when we have, bring your daughter to work day. The kids they used to come to work with me, and I would teach them. Actually, it was like multiple kids, not just my kids would come, like other kids would too. And we would do lessons about
Wow.
personal finance and investing, and it was a lot of fun. I think they were more excited about going out for lunch most of the time, but they did enjoy the lessons as well. But and we try to, when their college fund statement comes in, try to sit down and show them that, and kind of that attaches some sort of like reality to what I do and what's going on in the world and the markets too. They can see that things going up, hopefully, not always though. So yeah, they know a little bit about it, but I don't think they have a full understanding. Like most kids probably don't have a full grasp of what their parents do.
Sure. Yeah, I understand that. I'm interested in hearing from you, given that you've been growing this business. I said 6 years, it's more like 8 years. How have you gained clients over these years? What has your marketing strategy been, and how have you implemented it?
So as an introvert, I don't necessarily like to network. I can do it and I can turn it on if I need to, but it's exhausting to me. So most of my, I look at my data, and I would say 70% of my new clients come from referrals from existing clients.
Wow.
And then that remainder comes from referrals from the XYPN Planning Network, NAPFA, and Fee Only Network. And then also, so that's probably like 10%. And then the remainder of that is from professionals, real estate agents, tax preparers, other people that I have met and networked with or have some sort of connection with over time. But really, it's the bulk of it comes from existing clients.
Yeah. That really goes along with what we've seen over the years, that is advisors kind of pass that year 5 in business. It's really just this natural referral network that they've created, especially as you develop a niche. I'm wondering, when you work with your clients, what does the relationship look like? And I guess before you answer that question, how many clients do you serve on an ongoing basis?
I think it's about, I had it written down, but I think it's probably like around 30 clients on an ongoing basis right now.
Perfect. And what's the relationship that you have with them?
Gosh. I am I think that I'm the trusted advisor, and who also is a little bit annoying at times, providing the nudges of things that they need to do or things that they should do. I had one tell me one time that she had some difficulties managing cash flow, and when she was out, she would think, what would Chuck say if she wanted to buy something right now? So I have a very close relationship with my clients, and I can feel very comfortable telling them, whether or not what they're doing is a good idea or a bad idea. I think that's one of the reasons that's what they hire us for, right? They want our opinions on things, and our guidance. So I have a really close relationship with clients. I don't have a lot of clients who leave obviously there's turnover, but most clients who hire on an ongoing basis have stuck with me, and we have a good, solid relationship.
I appreciate that answer. That reminds me so much of Alex Yeager's answer a few months ago on the podcast about why he keeps his client numbers right around 35 to 40. He said he likes to be able to pick up the phone and know exactly who he's talking to and when and what advice to give them. And I think that's a really intentional decision to make, that you have this clear idea of how many you can kind of focus on and foster and continue to serve. Do you plan on growing much more than that?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think I have more capacity. I mean, so my growth plans kind of come back to where we started, which was about the kids and having time to do the things with the kids and travel. And so my kids are now 10 and 13 and far more self-sufficient. The middle and the high school that they go to is 2 blocks from our house.
Nice.
So the youngest will start there next year, so they'll be able to walk to school. And one's a teenager, one's almost a teenager. Let's face it, they don't want dad around as much anymore.
Oh no.
But that's always been kind of the plan, just be able to spend
Right.
time with them when they were younger and when they wanted me around. But now that they don't want me around as much, I have more bandwidth that I can do other things. And one of those things is to grow the firm even more. So yeah, I will definitely, and I think I hear this number all the time about a client, a planner can have 100 clients. I don't know that I buy 100 clients. I think that seems a bit high, or at least for the way that I want to work.
Right.
I think, if I'm at 30 now, I think another 30 would be fine. It wouldn't be too much of a problem, especially leveraging technology. But 100 might be a bit much.
Yeah. Yeah, we had Cliff Downey on the podcast a few weeks ago, and he services about 100 clients, but he has a very different relationship with them than what you've described. And he has a very structured way of how he stays on a rhythm with each of them. It's quite fascinating. What kind of rhythm do you have with your clients? And is it a monthly engagement that you really try to engage them each time, or are you just picking up the phone when they call?
For some, it's a monthly engagement. And I think it all depends on the client, right? And what they want. I do find that for the younger clients who are in that, let's say late 30s to mid 50s bracket, if they're busy, with demanding jobs and juggling kids and all that sort of thing, they often don't want to or don't have time to talk to me. So in those cases, it's me often reaching out to them. And obviously I pick up the phone if they call me for some reason, but it's usually some sort of life change when they're reaching out to me. And otherwise I'm reaching out to them for reminders, for, maybe we've had a meeting and I'm kind of reminding them of the tasks that they need to do. It's that sort of thing. But, I try to reach out and meet with clients or talk some sort of communication with clients, at least every 6 months. But there are some clients who, it's once a year for them because they just don't have the time or just the interest to do it more frequently. Some of the older clients, especially in a time like this that we're seeing right now, are much more concerned about their nest egg and what's happening to it, even though we've prepared for this eventuality. We knew that something was going to come, didn't know exactly what the problem was going to be, but so we've kind of had things prepared for that. You're never as prepared as you'd like to be, I think, but you do the best you can. So, but for those clients, I am definitely reaching out more, having more meetings, sometimes monthly, for those clients who are concerned about what's happening and what they should be doing now. Mm-hmm. But for the older ones, especially, like, I think a quarterly check-in would be ideal. And for those that are extra concerned, I'm always there to talk to them.
I am interested to hear how those conversations are going now with our kind of current landscape, the market downturn that we've experienced. You mentioned that some of your older clients are a little bit more interested in having those conversations. How do you handhold a client when their retirement has gone down?
Well, I don't actually do any physical hand holding now because of social distancing. But, we start with, it's a lot of just the fundamentals, here's what we've seen in other situations that are maybe not exactly like this, but in other situations, here's what happened and here what was the recovery. Here's what it looked like. It's a constant drip of communications to people. I do write, maybe not as consistently as I would like to, but I do write and I post those, but I use, MailChimp to get that out to clients and then reformat for, to post on my blog, on my website. So that drip of information. And I saw recently and there's some debate about this. Rick Ferry, who I very much respect, he had tweeted something about, don't communicate these, so frequently to your clients because you're going to scare them when you're telling them information about what's happening in the markets in a scary time like this. And I don't necessarily agree with that. Like, I think maybe it's right for his clients to not communicate with them, but I know my clients, and I know my clients because of feedback that they like a drip of communication, constant flow. And so I'm going to keep doing that. The past couple of weeks, I've had something out every single week to my clients because I think that it's important to just stay on top, stay positive, to, again, drip out some information about what's happened previously, maybe try to explain in further detail what's happening. Again, maybe that's not right for everybody and everyone's clients, but it works for my clients. And so I'm happy to do it. I feel like that's my job. That's part of my job anyway.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's, one of the unique aspects of you guys being able to build the firms the way that you want to is really knowing what your clients want. And there may be even segmentation within your client, in between your clients that help you kind of parse through that. Do you segment your clients? Do you know that, client A is the group that really wants drip campaigns and some other folks may need phone calls? Do you think about your clients kind of in different buckets?
I do. I probably should be a bit more intentional about actually segmenting them out that way. I'd mentally do that, but as the client base grows, obviously, like, that becomes a bit of a problem, which goes back to that study group that I have working on Salesforce Accelerate. We're putting those things in place now, and as I'm building that out, I am starting to think about how do I segment this a bit more. But you're right, there are some clients who totally ignore my messages. I can tell based on MailChimp that they are opening them, so that's a win. But some that just never respond, and that's okay. They're getting it, and I know them well enough now that I know the type of client that's going to be concerned about what's happening, and the ones that are just like, well, I'm not retiring for another 30 or 40 years, so I don't really care.
Yeah.
But so yes, the answer is yes. Maybe should be more intentional, but getting there.
Mm-hmm. We'll change topics just a little bit. You're running your virtual business out of DC. You've got an impressive client base. You love technology. You were kind of a thought leader in this space early on in 2012 when you started this. You must have had some run-ins with our wonderful regulators. And I'm wondering what compliance has been like over these years for you. And has it become less stressful or has it become more stressful over these years?
So I'm in Washington, D.C., living and working in Washington, D.C. I have been audited twice since I started my firm. I won't be surprised if I get another one in the near future. I'm hoping it's after some of this, what the current coronavirus situation kind of goes away, just so that I don't need another layer of stress right now.
No.
But, so yes, I've been audited twice. It has been actually not that bad. It forced some changes to my practice that were, in the end, I think, for the better. I think no one likes going through an audit. I think that where I had the part that I don't like and where it stresses me out is that I always feel like you're under scrutiny. And I do feel like there is a bit of an assumption on the auditor's part that you're doing something wrong or illegal. And I don't like that feeling because I work really hard to do what's best for my clients. And so if someone, comes in to me and is, whether they're explicitly stating that I'm doing something wrong, or they're just kind of, you can tell the attitude of, well, this person's whatever, that bothers me a lot. And so that's the thing I dislike the most about the audit. Answering the questions, giving them whatever information they need. It's a hassle. It's time consuming. But if you've organized your files and you've got backups, the archive of things that you need, those systems in place, it's actually not so bad. It's just a hassle. Yeah. I know that I'm probably fortunate because I see what's happened with some of the advisors who are in Washington State, and that seems like a bit of a nightmare in trying to run a firm where you're putting your clients first. That's not been my experience in DC. So I guess I should feel fortunate in that regard.
Yeah. Any tips for our listeners in terms of kind of setting up the business in a compliant manner? Is there any tips that you have to staying organized and structured so that when an audit does come around, things are easier? Any takeaways from what you've been through? So
I think XY Planning Network is a really good community of planners who are willing to share. And so if you're starting a firm, I think the obvious thing to do is to find a planner or planners in your region, your state, that are already established. And this doesn't have to be XYPN, it could be NAPFA as well. Mm-hmm. And find out what they did. My experience, most people are willing to talk to you and share information with you. So find out what those planners did, how they got set up, how they have things, what technology they're using, what their policies and procedures manual looks like. Because then that'll help you prepare your firm so that when you do get audited, because you will get audited, that it's a less painful experience. And then, whatever archiving you've got to do of client statements and financials, just make sure you're on top of it. Yeah. Don't put it off until you get that call from the regulator that you have to, and then you're scrambling. If you've got it and you can do it, just get into a routine, set it up as a reminder, as a task. Just stay on top of things so that, because that's the last thing you want to think about when the regulator calls. You just want to be able to, because you don't want downtime from your business. You don't want to be pulled away from your clients. Just be ready. Talk to a planner, get information, and stay on top of your stuff.
That echoes so much advice I've heard over the years from advisors about preparing for an audit, is that it's not the preparation, days before the audit. It's the preparation you do years before the audit, that it really becomes, it's a system that you must put in place and you stick to. And it really keeps the headache from being a migraine, I suppose. Chuck, one of my first memories of you is running the streets of Charlotte back at our first XYPN live event. We had a structured run. I think we paid someone to guide a run when we clearly had people that knew how to run and knew how to run around an urban center. But it was a really fun time because there were 20 or so of us out there early in the morning before an exhibit hall day. You were always a member that really kind of idealized this work-life balance of someone that wanted to be able to stay mentally healthy and physically healthy while running a firm. What advice do you have for folks that are going to go out on their own to be able to strike a balance that allows them to stay in shape and be able to bring their best selves to their business every day?
So the work we do as planners is, it's really important, but it can be mentally exhausting and tiring and challenging. And so I think you've got to know yourself. Like, I know that I'm an introvert. And so I know that I need to recharge my batteries. And I think every planner, person in general, this applies to across life, know yourself and know what you need to do to take care of yourself so that you can be prepared for that next week or even the next day to respond to your clients, to help them to the best of your ability. And so, for me, I need to get exercise. It's CrossFit would be my number one. So this whole being quarantine thing is really tough right now. CrossFit via Zoom is not the best. And running. Another thing that I do, but it doesn't have to be a physical thing that you do. For me, it's exercise, but it may not be for everybody. I like to paint. So, having some sort of creative outlet that you can do. In my case, that's painting. But just do something that recharges your batteries so that just take care of yourself, because it's easy to get burned out. And so if you don't set aside some time every day on the weekends for yourself, you're going to have a much more difficult time, and your clients will, you'll see it if you're not taking care of yourself.
And what a great business to have structured for yourself, to be able to give yourself that freedom to keep yourself happy. It really sounds like the flexibility of this profession is what drew you in, and therefore you were able to really prioritize the things that make you whole.
Definitely. Flexibility is, something that my wife and I both prize heavily, and being able to turn things off at 5:00 if I need to go to the gym, or even sometimes at noon that I'm going to go and say, I'm setting aside this time for myself right now because I need to be ready for whatever's coming later in the day or the next day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've always told Alan Moore, our co-founder, that the flexibility of XYPN's work policy is by far my most cherished member benefit, staff member benefit. The ability to define how I spend my day is now what I believe to be a human right, and it seems unrealistic for me to ever think that I wouldn't work somewhere, or that I would work somewhere that would require me to stay on a very, very structured schedule. I think we as humans really thrive when we have this flexibility, and we produce better work. We do it in less time. It takes less energy. All these things really come from that flexibility. And I hear from member after member that it is the flexibility that really is attractive about this profession.
I would probably be a lousy employee if I went somewhere that had a rigid schedule imposed on me.
Man, it's unrealistic. We have so many conversations at work about it, of that, especially now that we've transitioned into working from home, that working from home is a different ballgame than working in the office. And just being realistic that when you're going into an office 40 hours a week at night, from 8 to 5, the production level is just not the quality that you would get if you let your staff member do it from the beach, quite honestly. Mm-hmm. Chuck, as we wind down this interview, I'm wondering, what other sage advice do you have for folks that are thinking about either jumping into XYPN as an established firm like you did 6 years ago, or for folks that maybe haven't yet made the jump?
I think it's really just want to restate some of the things that I said earlier, which is that if you're just getting started, you're thinking about getting started, write a business plan for yourself, but with the idea that you should be very deliberate about the type of firm that you're building. And it's okay to not want to build, some sort of $1 billion firm if that's not what your lifestyle, is really geared towards. Mm-hmm. So really think about that. Think about building something that you are, that you really want. And then communicate with other planners who are already established, because, they're going to help you with kind of set up the firm. They're going to help you think through, what types of clients you want to serve, how you're going to serve them. And so, I think our group of planners are, XYPN and NAPFA, we're very willing to share information and documents, everything. Mm-hmm. And I think that it's one of the great things about this network. So I think, talk to people. They're willing to share. They're going to help you out. You can't lose when you talk to people like that.
Yeah. Well said, Chuck. Thank you so much for your time today. Listeners, I hope you enjoyed this podcast as much as I enjoyed recording it with Chuck. Thank you so much for your time. I hope you have a wonderful and safe rest of your day. Listeners, you too. Avocado toast, selfies, a mountain of student loan debt. Gen Y is anything but traditional, and with over 75 million people, it's a population you don't want to ignore. Learn more about how to serve this unique population in our guide called Attract and Profitably Serve Millennial Clients in Your RIA. Discover 3 key ways to tap into the millennial market and 6 things that they want from their financial advisor. Visit xyplanningnetwork.com/millennials for your free copy. Be sure to join our VIP community at xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP to hang out with XYPN radio listeners, ask questions for future mailbag episodes with Alan and Kitsis, and finally, to find a community of like-minded financial advisors. Thank you so much for joining me today. We'll see you next week.
You are not alone, and you are not crazy. It's scary starting, building, and growing your own financial planning firm, and that's why we put together a free private community just for you, the Cutting Edge Financial Planner. Go to xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP or text XYPN Radio to 33344 and join a network of thousands ready to change the lives of Gen X and Gen Y clients.